Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the NAMM Show. Today we have Dave Pensado here in our booth. By the way, his chair is provided by our fine neighbors at Sound Techniques, who have the coolest analog console at the show.
Sound Techniques.
If you come to the NAMM Show, we'll give away some plugins here, listen to Dave talk, and then you must go over there, because all that great music you're hearing over there, those are the guys that are doing it. Check it out. Okay.
Welcome to the McDSP Lounge.
All right. Dave Pensado has been our longest using customer since the company started. He used to travel around LA doing all his studio work, and every time he came to a studio, he'd say, "Do you have filter bank? Do you have compressor bank?" "No." "Well, I can't work here until you buy it." And we'd be like scrambling to get somebody a FedEx copy of some box product. Anyway, that's what we do. We're still doing it 20 years later, thanks to guys like Dave. Dave, what have you been up to?
Well, I have the most wonderful, boring life on earth. I wake up every morning and make a record, mix one, and then on Tuesdays I wake up, do the show, then go mix a record, then wake up. I work Sundays, I work every day, been known to work every holiday, and it doesn't feel like work. I still can't believe that people actually like what I do, and that sounds like I'm being humble. I'm not a humble person, but it just doesn't seem, you make wonderful software, my favorite, and it goes out into the world, and people know your software, but I know you sit in a quiet, dark lab and write the code for this stuff, and it's surprising when you see these kind of wonderful people come by and want to hear what you have to say, and it's humbling. So let's start off. I want you guys to ask me some questions. I can talk for years, but there's so many crossroads and forks in the road in the music industry that we're running into right now. And I've got a couple of them figured out with inside information, and a couple of them we might be able to figure out together. But I'll answer any question you want. I do marital problems. I've had 30 or 40 #1 records, so in California that qualifies me to perform marriages and divorces. So whatever you need, I'm here for you. So I'm going to, okay, what's your question?
When is it done? When is it too much? When do you draw the line? When do you know you're done?
When do I know I'm done with the mix?
Or even just on one channel up here.
Okay, I'm not being disrespectful, but if Michelangelo had not had the Pope, he'd still be painting the Sistine Chapel. That's the way creative people are. I don't know that you know when you're done. I think you more often than not run out of time. I have to finish a mix a day. And I really feel in my heart that you can overmix, and so I try really hard not to do that. How many of you do mixes in the course of your work? Okay. Normally, when it feels good, and I do this thing where I play DJ when I'm mixing. So I might work 30 minutes and play a couple of songs I like that are current. Then I might work another 2 hours and play something that's current. And the reason I've always done that is because I like to compete on radio, and now I'm competing on playlists. So playlists are so important right now. And the playlists that are popular, like the Viral USA 50 or the Viral World 50, I might follow a hip-hop song, I might follow an Adele song, I might follow all kinds of songs, and I'm arrogant enough to think that I can make my song sound better, and it doesn't always go linearly in that direction. My mixes get better. The more I get towards the end, they get better, and near the end, about an hour from the end, they are about 60%, and I get that last, well, you got everything there. It's like if you're cooking, you've already cooked the pasta, you've already cooked the onions and all that, and now it's just, the end is when it all comes together for me. So I've spoken already so long I forgot the damn question, but
When do you know you're finished?
yeah. Well, like right now, you don't. I can't tell when I'm finished with the damn question, much less a mix. All right, somebody else. Come on, guys.
Another question for Dave.
Participate. We're all family.
So at what point do you put master bus compression
Oh, amazing question. Okay, I'm going to answer it this way. You see the fine two young gentlemen over here, Raphael and Nico, they're my two assistants. They're the best in the business. If you got an assistant, we'll put them in the octagon. They can fight my boys. My boys will always win. He's from Brazil. He's from Argentina. You guys shake your head yes or no if I'm saying something accurate. I do it different every mix. So, huh? The question is, at what point do I start putting processing on my stereo bus, particularly compression and limiting? And it varies. Usually there's a piece of software that is some sort of limiter that I have there ready to go, but it's probably not engaged. It might be an ML from Colin. It might be another manufacturer. It just depends on the type of song I'm doing. I like to get it kind of going before I go to heavy bus processing. I'm from Miami, and I was born in Ybor City in Tampa, but I spent a lot of time in Atlanta, and the gentleman that that was my musical hero and mix engineer hero that I tried to emulate, he didn't put anything on his stereo bus. So when I moved to LA, I didn't know you could do that. And we thought it was a crutch. We thought that you had to get it before it got the stereo bus, but that's wrong. And so a lot of what you put and when you use it is genre dependent. Let's exaggerate it, which is a reducto ad absurdum, which is a debate term. Take it to the absurd to understand it. I spoke Latin on your stuff. And so if I'm doing an acapella, if I'm doing an acapella, I would do one sort of processing. If I'm doing a hip hop song, it would be another. If I'm doing Adele, it would be another. If I'm doing Beyonce, it would be another. If I'm doing Lil Uzi Vert, it would be another. So to give you a guideline, the concept and the reason you asked the question is all of our heroes, yours and mine, from the 80s, they would start with the SSL bus compressor in, but that was the 80s. In the 80s were one of my favorite decades musically. A lot of what I do I got from the 80s, even though I was a rock guitar player at the time. My mother taught guitar, so I toured with a lot of rock bands. But we don't do that anymore. I don't. I'm trying to think of my friends who are all mix engineers. Raphael, can you think of anybody we know that starts with it there? A limiter on the stereo bus? Okay. Yeah, Bob's going to come hang out with me at 4 o'clock today. Bob was my hero. Well, I know everything he does. He starts out with bus compressions, but it's usually the SSL bit. But listen, let this be a guideline. Can everybody hear me first? How many of you are disappointed I'm not more handsome? Thanks, guys. Damn, that was quick. Shit. And you see me naked. You need a reason to put something on the stereo bus. The stereo bus is very sacred territory. And so have a reason. Don't just randomly do it because it's there. Think of a reason that you need it. Now, what are some reasons that you might need it? Well, you might think, well, it doesn't sound as loud as it should, but my meters are already banging in the red. Well, that's a sign that you're doing something further up the process. So take a look at your kick and take a look at your bass. One of the things I like to do, and it doesn't always work, but flip one of them out of phase, and the frequency that disappears the most is the frequency you want to attack on one or the other. So let's say you put them out of phase and your 50 goes way down. Now put it back in phase and select, if you take 50 out of the kick, does it still sound good? If you take 50 out of the bass, does it still sound good? Now for a last resort, use a compressor and side chain it with a kick and put that on the bass, and then that'll pull the entire bass down. if you happen to have a E400, you can select a frequency that you want to go down, and that's what I do. So I'll select like the offending frequency, and whenever my kick drum hits, it'll just pull down 50 or 80 or whatever. And so that's a thought process, not something to go try, but try the concept of trying to get the stereo bus happy. I think of the stereo bus as a place where you put grumpy old products, and limiters just hate working. They don't like it. They get angry. They spit. They fart. They distort. They just make your music sound non-musical. So try to give them as little as possible to work with. One of the ways I do that is I use auxes, because I'm in Pro Tools. The DAW of your choice. Use what the process is for grouping things. So I run all my vocals through an aux. I run all my drums through an aux. Sometimes I separate the kick out by itself to its own aux. I run all my music through an aux. I run all my basses through an aux, and my effects. Now you say, why would you put your effects through an aux? Well, damn, this is a good crowd, Colin. This is a good-looking group of people. Well, not everybody. Sorry, Phil. But you might win a prize. Good-looking group. Okay, so the reason I put the effects through an aux is because sometimes I like to pull all my effects down for the first verse. So I'll leave it normal for the intro. Then for the first verse, I'll pull all my effects down. And then that gives a certain intimacy. The music and the drums dry up a little. The vocal dries up a little. And now the vocal seems more intimate. And it leaves me someplace to grow within the structure of the song. And then for the B section, I might turn it up. And then for the chorus, I might turn it up even more and drop it back down for the second. The way I like my song structure to go, let me see if I can do this backwards. If I do that, is that backwards? Is that a backwards A? Just seeing who's paying attention, Colin. Okay, if I do that, that's a B for you guys, right? Okay, so I like the intro to have this energy. Then I like the first verse to come up about a half a dB volume. I like the first pre-chorus to come up a little bit more. Now, I like my verse, if it has a lot of quarter note information, I'll emphasize that in the groove. The B section is where we create tension and release. So we create tension in the B section. How do we create tension? We emphasize anything eighth note. So I've got that. Oh, let me finish. And then harmonically, I might, if there's a sustained fourth chord, I might really hammer that chord. So harmonically, we're getting you, and then we're getting you ready for that big tonic payoff where it goes back to the key of the song. Harmonically and rhythmically, we're setting you up to hear some long half notes in the chorus. So let me just, this is stupid, so bear with me. Well, you already know it's stupid. So we got, in the verse, we got that, B, that, chorus. Okay, now watch. That. See what I'm saying? Tension, release, and now we come back to either a little 2-bar section that kind of sets you back up for the next verse. We drop the energy back down on the second verse to about where the pre-chorus of the first verse was. Then we start building it back up again. Now, the songs I work on have bridges, and in England they call them a middle eight, which I love saying that to my clients. And the bridge, you've got two choices. Either you lower the energy so that when you come to the chorus, the last chorus, you just hit your listener with everything you got. In your mind, pretend like they're all scrambling to go to iTunes and buy it, or they're going to Ticketmaster and trying to buy tickets to your concert. That's the one moment in the song. If you don't do it right, you're going to lose a lot of listeners. That's where all the money is, and that's where you've got to plan and do your best work. and then so the energy goes down. We hammer you in the last chorus. I've worked with Macy Gray, who I love, and she doesn't like to do that. A lot of times she'll raise the energy in the bridge, and then the last chorus lets you down gently. So there's different ways to do things. Can I get an amen? Does that make sense to anybody? Please, please, I swear, please somebody say no. Who said that? Come here, come here, come here. I know it's got to be a fucking friend of mine. So what is it that you think I could improve on? I want to learn from you guys.
I guess just the fundamental concepts of how to apply that, like those tools.
Come up here. We're all friends.
I mean, just the fundamental concepts of even like, I think sometimes when you're working as an engineer, you feel like the arrangement's already been done.
Yeah.
So if it's not there, you don't have the responsibility or even the.
Well, that's a great point, Robert. Except I'm talking about the energy flow, not the arrangement. I don't advocate. Well, I change the arrangement sometimes. But
I mean,
but
because the energy flow is in the arrangement, right?
Yeah, but a lot of times, you make a great point. A lot of times, the production and the producer, they're focused on producer type things, and if you're working with, like, say, Pharrell, then you don't really have a lot left to do. But some of my clients, they're really just trying to get the song together, get the performance together, and a lot of times I love doing indie projects, and a lot of times they don't have the best equipment, nor do they have the best places to record.
Or budgets.
But would you agree that the energy flow is important, whether it comes from the production or from us?
Absolutely.
What's your technique? No, I mean, see what? No, Robert did the right thing. It's not something that you want to do incorrectly. It's something you have to feel. I grew up in South Florida. I think I have an advantage, maybe not, because I heard music from Cuba and the Caribbean when I was that big, and I love groove and feel. A lot of the friends I grew up playing with are now famous musicians, and a lot of them played at a place called Muscle Shoals, Alabama, which is the home of the greatest groove and feel ever, a lot of the greatest records ever. So feel and groove are what I sell. I don't really sell my engineering skills. I'm not the world's best engineer, but I think I've had 800 gold and platinum records, 40 number ones, and
I feel like
to
this
me,
is a practical joke.
Tell me, no, I love you, man. To me, music is about feel and emotion and vibe, and I like a song that grabs me by the neck, throws me on the ground, and stomps on my head, you know?
Absolutely.
I want to feel something. When I was a little kid, I didn't fit in anywhere. I'm a Spanish kid with blue eyes, so imagine, I go out into the white neighborhoods, I get beat up, I come home, I get beat up, and at 5 or 6 years old, that wasn't working out for me. And I heard some music. It was a song by Jimmy Reed called Big Boss Man. And I went to my mom and asked her to teach it to me, and she played bass and I played the song. And it was like that kind of glass they put in bathrooms that's frosted? That's the way my life was. And all of a sudden I can see clearly, and so I try to get that feeling to come out of the speakers whenever I mix. It sounds corny, and I can't. You really can't, but you can try, I'm sure you do the same thing. We all put our life experiences into our creativity, right? Or else, what's living for, Oh, wow. I can't believe all you guys stopped by. Yeah, Bauer. Yeah, you want to take the hot seat? Hey, Robert, thanks, man. Appreciate it, buddy. Oh, you're quite all right. Or's a friend of mine, excellent mastering engineer. Sorry, I didn't mean to give you a compliment.
Yeah, I know. I almost got another job now. Thanks, Pensado. I'm here. I have a question. So let's put the technical side of what we can do in mixing in terms of
Talk louder.
what?
Talk louder.
Louder. Okay. So let's put aside the mixing as faders and EQ and reverbs and all that.
Okay, next question.
Okay, so the question is monitoring.
Oh, okay.
What's the level of monitoring that you think is optimal to get?
Wow,
like,
what
for
a great
you,
question.
when you mix, like, do you have a few monitoring levels that you focus in terms of how do I
Yeah.
get my low end? How do I get
Yeah.
my drums to
Yeah.
groove sonically?
Well, what a great question, and I'm going to ask you to answer it too, because mastering engineers, they usually in general hear better than mix engineers. They truly do hear better, but they hear different. We're involved with the trees, and he's involved with the forest, so he has to monitor and listen different. I'm guessing it's more constructive for him to work more or less at the same level all the time. I'm constantly moving my levels up and down. How many of you are familiar with the Fletcher-Munson curves? So for those of you that aren't, it was some research done, I think by some Bell Labs scientists, wasn't it? And so they were trying to determine how the human ear hears. Well, it turns out that the human ear is designed to hear the frequencies from, let's say, roughly 1,000 to 3,000 K, because that's the frequency range of speech. So as our hearing through the years started evolving, and by the way, I believe in creation. I'm a scientist. I also believe in evolution. I'm a very confused individual. So as that happened, we emphasized the ability to hear speech. Now, there's another factor that which engineers don't take into. I started doing this recently, and if I do it, just slap me, okay? I don't like that. I went through that for a while. But there's another thing, and that's women are designed to hear a baby's cry, so their Fletcher-Munson curve is a little higher than ours as men. And so we have to keep that in mind with our records. So a lot of times, when you think you want your record to be louder, you reach for the bass, you reach for the kick, but really it's the mid-range that makes it sound louder. I know a lot of you are shaking your heads, you already know this, but study the Fletcher-Munson curves, and you'll come up with your own interpretation. Mine might not be right, but so the louder you play your mix, the more mid-range information you're going to get. Now, we all are familiar with NS10 speakers. Now, NS10 speakers, I used them for 35 years, and they're wonderful speakers. They have an advantage that some people like and some people don't like. They emphasize the frequencies in the Fletcher-Munson area, and they push those frequencies forward. So if you're so inclined, you don't have to strain to hear them. And so those of us that like them, we use them to kind of work in that area. And then we don't monitor to listen flat. So you don't listen to NS10s to hear 80 cycles, 100 cycles, 1K, 10K. Most people listen to speakers and want to hear all those frequencies at the same level. But what if you trained your ear to know when 80 was right, but it was 40 dB down? So that's what I do with NS10s. I EQ 808s on NS10s all the time because I'm not listening for 80 to be flat. I'm listening for it where it comes up naturally on the speaker. And when you teach your brain to do that, you can go to any studio and instantly work and not have to worry about what you're hearing. For about half of my career, I couldn't go to new studios. It'd take me about 3 days to get comfortable. So long answer, hopefully there's some information there. I like to use multiple speakers. In the course of a mix, I might use no less than 3 different speakers, plus headphones a little bit, plus earbuds, plus my trusty laptop, which I have an old laptop that actually has a little sub in it. That Apple made the first iteration of the Intel Mac had a little sub. It's not really a sub, it's just, but they call it a sub. And so I like to listen on things that my clients might listen to it on. Myra, what do you do? Real quick, one sentence.
I have a full range 3-way set, which I usually listen in one level.
So you use one set of speakers?
No, I have a few, but I mostly work on one set of speakers and one set level. And then after I'm comfortable with it, I'll crank it up a notch or two, maybe crank just down just to make sure it still translates. But usually I like to keep the same monitoring level per that set of speaker. And then if I want to check a different speaker, then the curve is different and I have to change the volume.
Okay, look, we have a little bit of a time problem, so let's do this. How many of you, Colin's a really cool guy. If you don't worry, he's not gonna, you'll still win a prize. Are we giving away prizes? How many of you use McDSP products? Can I ask you which one's your favorite? So which one's your favorite? Yeah. Raise your hands again. What's your favorite? I use Futzbox all the time. I got some presets in Futzbox. You ought to try the shaker one, the hi-hat one. Ooh, money.
I use ML4000, the single band.
I use that too. Okay, who else? Tell me. It improves your chances of winning a prize. What? Oh yeah, filter bank. Filter bank, you guys are kind of young. When I first started using Pro Tools in the early 90s, and there wasn't really much. I don't think there were any plugins really. And when you saved you couldn't save a plugin. You couldn't save the presets. You couldn't do anything. It was really at the beginning. But I embraced the digital world pretty early on, and when Filterback came out, it changed and revolutionized the digital industry because now we had a tool that we could approximate what we did in the analog world. Was it perfect? No. Is analog perfect? No. And it took us a minute to realize that in the digital world we could do things that we couldn't do in the analog world, and vice versa. And Filterbank was the one turning point where my friends went, wow, I need to take this digital thing pretty seriously. And it's just this guy. And he cheated, though. He was an employee at Avid, so he knew how to get access to the good shit, you know? And I hope he's remembered that way because he's the Rupert Neve of digital audio. That's a bold statement, and I stand by it, and fuck you if you don't think that's right. Okay, who else? What do you use? You, miss? Yeah. What do you do for a living? Are you an engineer? Okay. Oh, cool. What type of music do you do? Okay. Well, if anybody has that need, talk to my lady right here. Okay, look, let me wind this up because you guys have been very patient. The tools that we have available to us are very vital and very important. And without those tools, we can't do what we do. And Richard, what's up? I didn't see you hiding back there. And so I always try to meet the manufacturers because you can get a feeling for the quality of the tools when you know the manufacturer. That's a bold statement, and it's not always true. There's a couple of manufacturers I don't like, but I like their work. And I'll tell you, when you use a McDSP product, damn it, when you use a McDSP product, you're getting access to not just some of the best technical work, but musicality. Colin's a musician. He loves synthesis. He's got a great synthesizer collection. And he would never put anything out that he wouldn't use himself. And he's got pretty good taste when it comes to that. So if you're not already a McDSP convert, and I have been for 20 years when it first came out, I think I was one of the first people to really embrace it. Tell me if this is true. you'd sold just a handful, and I mentioned you in a magazine article, and we sold a lot, like 5,000 in a week or so.
It was a lot. There was also that time you called. I think it was about the time that you had been reviewed in, I think, Mix Magazine again or something, and you called in for tech support, and I picked it up, and I was like looking at the article, like, hey, this is Dave Pensado. What? And I was like, oh, yes, what do you need? Well, I have a little authorization problem here. No, please, I'll make it work. It was all fixed. But yeah, but then
We've been friends ever since.
Yeah, but you would
His
go around.
father helped design my favorite airplane. It's called the Blackbird, the SR-71, the big spy plane, and his dad's a character. His dad, he doesn't do it anymore, but he used to send me circuit designs that were very artistic, and I love electronics, and so I'm tied into the family. But you can tell I love this man and I love his products. Let's give something away real quick before
we got some raffle tickets. If everyone has a raffle ticket, Dave's going to do the drawing. I'll hold the box for you, Dave. But you got to do the picking and make it legit. The winners are going to make DSP plugin of their choice.